Greetings. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks, Sr., your host, and this is Community Forum. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an outstanding guest this evening for you, Mr. John T. Krempotic. He's a retiree from the Lake County Sheriff's Department, and he's a Democratic candidate for the Lake County Sheriff's Department. Greetings, John.
Thank you, Dr. Brooks, and thank you for the opportunity to appear.
We're very happy that you're taking time for your busy schedule to enlighten Lake County about the Sheriff's Department. And we'd like, first of all, for you to tell our listening audience a little bit about your personal and professional background.
Well, I obtained my bachelor's degree from Carthage College in 1996. I started law school at that time, and I had to withdraw at the time for health reasons, but another door opened, as they say. When God closes one door, he opens another. And I was put into the Lake County Major Crimes Task Force at that time. During my career, I became an accident reconstruction expert, evidence technician, processing various types of evidence, every kind of evidence, and pretty much just educating myself through work on serving the community. And I'm very proud of my career with the county. I think I performed well. I always think I could do better, but I'm very happy. But I see a chance now. We need to step up to the plate, and especially with the past presidential election. People say it starts locally, and it really does. It really does. Excuse me. So I'm looking to rebuild the Sheriff's Department. Right now, it is in somewhat disarray. It's not up to par for the department of that size, and especially in the 21st century. They are using tactics, using training, quotas that have been in existence for over 50 years, some even longer. I feel there's a need, number one, to train our own people in Lake County. We have the facilities up on Russell Road. It's a large parcel of property that the county uses right now as a firing range, and also the fire departments train there. I foresee opening a police and fire academy there, run by respective experts in the field. We have many teachers, qualified instructors in the Sheriff's Department, and I know the fire service does also. I think this could be beneficial to the entire community, the entire county. The local agencies that would use this wouldn't have to pay the fees that they're charged right now to use the state of Illinois facilities, University of Illinois facilities, where their officers have to travel a great deal of distance to attend school. This could be done locally. In conjunction with that, I want to see it meet and exceed the requirements right now to become a law enforcement officer. Right now, it's 480 hours of class. I think we can do a lot better by expanding the education to include such things as defensive tactics. Instead of relying on the firearm or the taser, sometimes you have to engage somebody physically. And what's happening right now, I think you're seeing throughout the country that these guys, the officers, are scared. And there's a reason for that too. Several years ago, many of the law enforcement agencies increased the criteria to become a member of their department to include 60 hours of college credit. Now it's expanded to where it has to be a degree in criminal justice. But what they did with that, and they said, that those who are well educated are less likely to use violence for conflict resolution. However, in hindsight, we've eliminated an entire segment of the population that can't afford to go to school, that can't afford to get that college degree. We've eliminated members of the armed forces, one of the most diverse workforces in this country. And by eliminating folks like that, you're getting educated people that have pretty much led a segregated life. They come from communities that they didn't interact with minorities whatsoever. And all they know about different cultures is what they've seen on TV. And we can do better than that. My plan is to bring on those that want to become a deputy sheriff, who've come out of the military or just have their high school or GED equivalent, to bring them on board and in their training help them get through the 60 hours of college credit so that they will be able to afford college because the county will absorb most of the cost for it.
Okay, John, I'm going to pinpoint that right on education there.
Yes.
We're going to come back there.
Okay.
But I want you to tell us, you're no stranger to North Chicago, right?
That's correct. Born and raised here. I started working for the police department in high school.
Okay.
And became the animal warden. And then I was in charge of parking enforcement. And I left to accept a position with the Lake County Sheriff's Department. And that was in 1979.
Right. So you have family still in North Chicago?
Just my brother and my sisters have all, they're married and moved throughout the county, but they're all pretty close here.
I knew your, I guess your mother and father quite well. Then they were.
Yes.
They were active too. I know.
Yes, my dad was an alderman it was the 3rd Ward at the time.
Okay.
And he was very proud of that. I was very proud of him too because he didn't take extreme positions. He welcomed and accepted people as they were, as Dr. King said, by the content of their character rather than, anything else. And that's, you don't judge people on the color of skin. You don't judge people from where they come from or for what they drive or where they work. We're all in this together. And I learned that from my parents. My mom was a nurse and very compassionate, obviously. My sisters and my nieces have followed in her footsteps and have become nurses also. So I'm proud of that fact. But we came from good stock.
Well, what piqued your interest in the sheriff's department as a career?
Well, I wanted to go into law enforcement. And I took tests. I took a test for Lake Forest. I took a test for the Waukegan Fire Department at one time.
Okay.
But my heart was really in law enforcement from what I learned from the police officers at North Chicago.
Oh.
And each one of them were mentors. Ernie Fisher taught me how to load bullets. We worked in the old range that they had there, and we would make, he'd trust me, showed me how to do it, and we made the bullets for the officers to target practice with. But I got to see the goings-on in there and saw how they handled problems, how they were able to solve conflicts. And it wasn't always with the handcuffs. Law enforcement has always been, and it still is today, we're problem solvers. And it doesn't always mean you have to make an arrest. You have to work with people. Sometimes people aren't familiar with the laws around here. They may come from other areas of the country that don't have the same laws. We have to educate and we have to work with people.
Okay, now, what is the overall mission then of the Sheriff's Department?
The Sheriff's Department's mission is to serve, obviously, serve and protect. And we have to go a lot farther than that. By servicing the community, we have to reestablish the connection that's been lost in many areas with communities, with the various diverse population that exist in this county. We have to reach out to people and let them know who we are and what we can do for them, and listen to their concerns, listen to any complaints they have. And it's very important because if you're not listening, it's not going to get resolved.
Okay, now, what our listening audience is concerned about is that we have the police department, and now why a sheriff's department too?
Well, the Sheriff's Department handles many functions. One, of course, is the correctional division that they maintain. We also have, by law, is the Warrants Division and Civil Process Division, which civil process, they deliver subpoenas, civil, just what it is, civil litigation, summonses, things like that. The Patrol Division maintains patrol in the unincorporated areas. That's why I'd like to improve with that, because we still have the same patrol districts, 2 men to a district and 2 cars to a district. It's 114 square miles. And people sometimes have to wait quite a amount of time for an officer to respond. The way the computer system is set up, red, yellow, and green. Red is the priority call, yellow's next level, and then green is the low priority call. Well, if you're calling because somebody, broke into your car or something overnight, and they're busy with accidents or, higher priority calls, these folks are going to wait for quite a amount of time. There's ways to improve that response time by improving and redistributing the manpower on the patrol division, working with the union, because everybody's union there now. But there are changes that can be made to the shift scheduling, which would allow for additional manpower to be out there on the street. The Village of Beach Park contracts with the Sheriff's Office, and they have 2 cars, plus the 2 district cars that are up there. So you have quite a bit of manpower there. I think we could do better. I think we could put more people out there, and I think we could gradually bring in civilian employees to handle some of the misdemeanor calls, some of the just insurance reports, as they call them, the minor incidences that do not require authoritative intervention, but just need a report made. They do take reports over the phone, and that's good, but I'd rather have people face-to-face with the department, because number one, you don't know who's calling on the phone to make that report. I've seen that happen. Antioch had, they take their house watches online, and then they send civilian workers out there to check the houses, unarmed civilian workers. And I asked their detective one time, I said, how can you guys justify that? What if they come across something? Well, he says, we hope that they'll back off and wait for a patrol car to arrive. I says, they may not get that opportunity. And I said, you've got to have that face-to-face. People pay taxes. They're entitled to that. They're entitled to know who they're talking to. They're entitled to understand what you're going to be able to do for them. And right now, we don't have that communication.
John, each city has a police department.
Yes.
Tell us about the coverage of a sheriff's department.
Well, the sheriff's department, again, the county is divided into 4 squares.
So sheriff department is county?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'd like to see us follow in line with what they've done in California and Los Angeles County and the counties adjoining Los Angeles, where they have contracted with communities out there to provide the police services. There's one community out there that's over 120,000 people. They don't have their own police department. It's cheaper for them, more affordable, to contract with the sheriff's department. I think we can do that. I think we can bring a higher standard of professionalism by doing that. And it would be a constant where you know who your law enforcement is. And I can see that down the road. Not too far, but I can see it. There was a point where Highwood was considering contracting with the sheriff's department, but they changed their mind at the last minute. Something else I wanted to see done was the licensing of law enforcement officers. They do that in some states. When you look at doctors, nurses, teachers, a wide plethora of professions that have to maintain a license, they have to maintain a certain education level, ongoing education level. And law enforcement deals in life and death situations. And you would think that would require a license. But This state doesn't require that at this time. And what that would do, it would ensure that if you have a problem officer from one agency, if he loses that license, he or she loses that license, they're not going to show up in another part of the state and start up with another department.
Okay.
And I think we've got to establish that contact. We've got to establish with the public that trust that goes both ways.
Lake County is approximately, 750,000 people.
Yes.
Plus, but that requires quite a budget. Do you ever know how much of a budget that the Sheriff Department has?
I don't have the figures in front of me. I know it is a considerable amount, mainly because we have to maintain the jail, the Corrections Division, and we have the other various divisions. So we have a large manpower situation, and we have to keep control on that. There's no such thing as just having a blank check. People aren't going to stand for that, although with this past administration, with the lawsuits and that, avoidable lawsuits, that's really taxing the citizens. And that's not fair to the citizens. I would intend to have a transparent administration where people would know exactly what it's costing and how their taxes are being spent. There was always an old saying under previous administrations that whatever your budget is, the next year you add 10%. And they said if you don't use it all, you've got to use it, because if you don't, they'll take it away from you. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. Use what's necessary.
Well, you got salary increase, you got maintenance costs increase, and so there's a standard. It's like you mentioned about 10%, which is normal standard to go by. But who are you responsible to? Who is the Lake County Sheriff responsible to? Is that the Lake County Board?
It would be Lake County.
Well, I mean, I know the people, but financially.
They are mainly accountable to the Law and Judicial Committee of the Lake County Board. That's where they have to go anytime they need money, if there's an urgent situation, and that's happened. You get close to the end of the calendar year where you're running out of overtime. That's an unpredictable entity there. You try and control it as best you can, but sometimes they run out. They have to go back and get an emergency allocation, and to ensure that there's going to be enough officers out there on the street.
Now, North Chicago played a great role. There was the head of the Law and Judiciary Committee was Audrey Nixon.
Yes.
The late Audrey Nixon, who passed away, I guess, last April.
Yes.
That was a most great function that she had there.
She did a wonderful job. And she didn't try to fight you. She didn't try to fight anybody else. She tried to work together with people. And she spread that amongst the other county board members. She said, we have to work together. And she was absolutely right. Her shoes are not going to be easy to fill. They won't be able to fill her shoes. But like I told Vance Wyatt, I said, you've got your own shoes now.
Right.
You can't compare yourself to her. You've got to, you make your own way. And he's a fine young man.
Fantastic. North Chicago again.
Yes. I went to high school with his dad, his late father.
Oh,
Royce Wyatt. So it was just, I guess I kind of dated myself, but it was an honor when he said that his dad spoke of me.
Right. Exactly.
And I, that is an honor. That means I made a good impression somewhere.
Right. Well, the impression that you're doing now is people are going to be asking you, what experience do you have to be Lake County Sheriff?
Well, 29 years law enforcement experience.
Okay.
Along with my education. I received my bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and I started law school at John Marshall. I have a pretty good mindset as far as the law and how it applies.
Yeah.
But it's always been my opinion that, yes, the law book is there, but at times you use it as a guide, not necessarily as the final word, although if it comes to that, that's what it is. It's the final word. but you use it as a guide.
Okay.
Because we are problem solvers. And until we get back to that point where the people trust us again, we're not going to be able to make much progress. I intend to get community policing, which we don't have with the Sheriff's Department, but we've got subdivisions where they have trouble areas. Once in a while they'll get some problems with a burglary ring or something like that.
Yeah.
We can have officers out there. We can get officers in a mobile station, police station, and out there and actually meeting with the people, talking with the kids. You get a lot of information that way. People will come by and tell you. You know, if you're sitting there, they'll come by and tell you who's doing what their concerns are. But if we have that wall between us and them, where we just have a patrol car going through, that's not that much of a service. It doesn't necessarily give people that reassurance that they once had. But when they know who's in that police car, they know your name, they know what you're doing, they know that you're concerned with their well-being, people are going to reach back out. And right now, like I said, with what's been going on, I've attended several of the Black Lives Matter meetings to listen. And I was very impressed, number one, with what they had to say. Because, you know, we're all children of God, so they are my brothers and sisters. But I was also impressed when I saw local police chiefs arriving and showing up and listening too.
Fantastic.
And that's what it takes. Yogi Berra once said you could hear a lot just by listening. Well, you know, he's absolutely right.
Yes. Oh,
but you know, when you attend functions like that, these groups form in response to problems, perceived problems on their behalf or perceived problems on the entire country's behalf. But when these groups form, it's like they taught us in command testing. If you have little cliques, you know, of deputies or officers that are starting to gather aside from the mainstream, that's indicative of a problem. We have a problem in this country.
You know, that's leads to another question, and we normally get a chance when the candidate is running for office, and I guess we should have forums, you know, all during the term of the office, is how will you bring diversity in the Sheriff's Department?
Well, as I said, I want to open up the hiring to incorporate the local communities, to bring in people who have, like I said, the GED or the high school diploma, and bring them on board and give them that opportunity to work towards their associate's degree. But right now, like I said, because they set that level so high, and there are so many people out there that would make good officers, especially military veterans.
So who sets the
Merit Commission? But that's usually at the request or the insistence of the sheriff. And like I said, you know, when they came out with this, everybody thought, well, this is a good idea because, you know, they showed what the studies showed. But in hindsight, it was a terrible idea because, yes, you're getting an educated officer out there, but they've never worked with minorities before, and they're scared. And this is what you're seeing in some parts of the country. Where it's just tragic. Down in Oklahoma, where the female officer shot and killed that man. Well, his car was in the middle of the street. Was he on some kind of hallucinogenic? Possibly. But when did that become a capital crime? And she said that she was trained that if somebody reaches back into their car, you shoot them. That's ludicrous. I have never heard that training at all. And then when she was acquitted of the criminal charges, they brought her back on the department. Now, certainly, we have to be proactive when we have situations like that. You don't know the person's personality until they're actually performing a lot of times. But when you have somebody, you know, who's been in the military, they generally have a very level head. They don't react, they act. And that's important. But like I said, right now, the communities, and I don't blame folks, African Americans, Latinos, they don't trust law enforcement. They don't trust them. And I can see why.
So what can be done to establish, I shouldn't say reestablish, I should say establish that trust? It's very important.
Again, we have to diversify the workforce. We have to start bringing in people that represent the diversity of this county.
Okay.
We have to work to hire minorities more than they have now. It's historically, the sheriff's office has always tried to keep the highway patrol or the deputy side as a white majority.
Oh.
Okay, and but they'll put minorities in the jail. Now, they haven't come out and said why they did that, but it's pretty obvious to me what they're trying to do. They're trying to impress people out there that, we've got this white department. Well, that doesn't work anymore. It didn't work then, it's not going to work now. And when I first started, we were in a domestic situation where I was knocked unconscious, my training officer was knocked unconscious, and Perry Coleman, the late Perry Coleman,
yes.
saved both our lives. Because I came to, Perry, African-American, he had the main offender down on the bed, he had him handcuffed.
Okay.
I've never forgotten that. If he hadn't been there, I wouldn't be here. And that means a lot to me. It really does. And growing up in North Chicago in a very diverse community that we have, my friends have been Latino, my friends have been African-American. You saw the show that I acted in.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that too.
That was a lot of fun.
Since you mentioned it, I saw Dr. John Krempotic in that play in Zion.
Yes.
I was very impressed.
Thank you.
And I told the director, I'm going to put you in for a raise. You did a fantastic job. But tell us about it. How did you get involved with that?
My friend Lynn Epps, he lives in North Chicago. He called me and says, that they're putting on this show, and asked. He said there's a role that he felt would suit me pretty well.
Ah.
I said sure, and him and I acted years ago, of course, in high school.
Okay.
We did a lot of stage productions there.
You guys were contemporaries in high school?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And of course that goes back a ways.
Yeah.
But him and I had a lot of fun doing this show because it's like we picked up from where we left off.
Okay.
And it was a lot of fun, and it was a lot of fun working with some of the folks and then all the people that were in there. And
you were very impressive. That was a very impressive role.
Thank you.
That you played there.
I really enjoyed it, and I told the director, please, when we do something again, let me know. I really enjoyed it, and it was a lot of fun. But the main thing that I thought was so interesting was the audience reaction. They were following that, and just my fiance was in the audience, and one of our friends was with her, and her family was out there, and they followed it. I mean, it was kind of like the younger folks were on the edge of the seats.
It's something that North Chicago needs. People go to the Windy City to plays, and so forth. So this was a chance for them to see a play right locally there.
Yes.
It was fantastic.
And we did the first show we did in June, and that was at North Chicago High School in the
yeah, I saw that one.
That was, and we didn't get the turnout, that we hoped for, but I think a lot of times it's because it was so nice outside, nobody wanted to come inside. We had a rainy day for the show up in Zion, and we filled the place up. So
amazing.
It was.
I think the people got the word spreaded around about it, and so the weather didn't stop them from coming.
No, and I was impressed with that because it's hard to predict how people are going to react, but this was a very powerful show.
And speaking of training, nationwide now, we see there's a great need for sexual harassment training.
Yes.
The prevention of sexual harassment. Do we have such a training program in Sheriff Department now?
I'm not aware of anything more than what they've had in the past, and generally it's been a reactionary type training. When somebody, something like this happens, or somebody does something, they come out afterwards and try and correct it. We need to prepare for that. We've had situations in the past there. They settled a lawsuit with several women about 10 years ago who were sexually harassed by a command officer there. And the problem you have there is it's so well known, and the administration sometimes is aware of what's going on, but they don't want to disturb it because they don't want it to look bad on them. Well, it always ends up looking bad on you because it blows up, and as the sheriff, or as you're the superior officer to whoever the violator is, that's a reflection on them. And we can't have that. We cannot have that. There's good people in that department.
Now, what about women in the sheriff department? Is there what kind of the numbers you have there?
I think right now it's not that many, but there are more in the patrol division. A friend of mine, she just retired, and I'll tell you what, I would have her back me up anytime. She was tough and she was good. And it's all comes into training.
I remember what was she, a detective that pulled us? Was it
Portia Wallace?
Portia Wallace,
yes.
yeah.
She was from North Chicago originally too. Yeah. And her and I started the same day.
Oh, okay.
And we did a lot of work together. She was a great person, just great, and she wasn't afraid of anything. But
she's only a few.
Yes. And
women in the whole department.
And I don't know that they may have one or two female command officers, which we need to have more of that. We need to have the qualified people in there, regardless if they're
What
male
happened?
or
The
female.
people are not applying, or what? You're not reaching out for them? Or?
I think it's a matter of not reaching out. They've done testing. They do testing every 2 years.
Okay.
They compile a list, and a lot of people coming, into the workforce. They're going to test at various different places.
Yeah.
And try to go with what offers the best for them. Right now, because of the requirements, we've got folks that are scared to come out there and take the test now. Where we have people who have been in the military, I don't mean to hound on that, but
when you say scared to come out and take the test,
they're afraid because of the atmosphere out there right now. But this is an atmosphere that was created by law enforcement. This was not something. Yes, you're going to have a bad guy once in a while who's going to, pull a gun.
Oh, yeah.
That happens, unfortunately. But the situation has gotten so out of hand. And when you have the President of the United States encouraging officers to get rough with the suspect.
That was very unfortunate, right?
That was terrible. Because there are people who are going to believe that and say, you know what, the President said to do that. And you can't have that. You can't have that. And the law enforcement officer ideally has to be neutral. You can't come out there and take a side, other than to enforce the law or solve the situation. But you can't come out there and say, well, I'm a Republican, so I'm going to treat you this way, or I'm a Democrat, I'm going to treat you this way. They have to be neutral. It's almost like being a machine. But people have to know that you're going to make the right decision, not on who they are, but on what the situation is. And, unfortunately, racism is alive and well in law enforcement. I've seen it in other agencies, and I've seen it in our own agency, where command officers have said things that just shouldn't be coming out of their mouths.
In other words, they bring to the department the way they were raised in
a lot of cases,
in the community, right?
Yes.
And their community is not, include minorities in their community.
Sure, exactly. That's why I say when the workforce that we have to deal with now are kids that could afford to go to college. They come from white majority communities where they haven't interacted with minorities. And they have this preset opinion of what to expect from folks, and they're wrong. And I'm here to tell you, I've lived in North Chicago all my life. I don't have problems with people. I haven't felt the need to carry a gun since I retired. And my famous saying when I was working was, when I was inside in investigations, I said, I'm 5 minutes from the office. Who could ask for more than that? You know, you've got guys coming from the west end of the county, they got to leave for work an hour and a half early just for the traffic. I'm 5 minutes away. So it's convenient for me. But like I said, and we talked a little bit about this before, I'm pretty happy with the city. I'm pretty happy with a lot of the services. You know, and I know the people, and the people know me. And if I go to another community and move in somewhere, I don't know who my neighbors are going to be.
You know, it's very important then that you just kind of elaborate a little bit on how would you, see the most important issue affecting relations between the general public and law enforcement.
And right now it's a lack of trust. It's a lack of trust, and I understand it. Believe me, I get it. Law enforcement hasn't done a lot to show their neutrality. And unfortunately, there's a lot of good officers out there. But you don't hear about them because they don't do anything bad. They don't do anything wrong. They don't do anything to draw attention. Okay, and the few that do makes a bad example out of the rest of us. And we can't have that. People need to know who their officer is in their community. They need to be able to trust them. And things aren't looking that well right now, and I think mainly it's because of the requirements, the educational requirements. You see more and more school resources officers getting in trouble, having relationships with some of the students. You can't have that. And like I said, going to a system where we would license law enforcement officers, you could eliminate that right now. They lose their license, they can no longer be a law enforcement officer. And unfortunately, that's the status we're at right now. The people need to know that they're protected. They need to know that they're protected by good officers. They need to know that if there is a bad officer out there, that officer will be weeded out and removed from duty. And that's the only way we're going to establish trust again.
You know, some communities are have experienced fright because of minorities. Because I know there are cities here in Lake County when minorities were hired, they could not arrest anyone except a minority. They had to call the white officer to come and arrest. It's hard to conceive that.
It is.
That,
I mean,
But the black officers told me that,
And that's a shame. I mean, you feel that you've gone so far, and then you're pushed back. And I know in some parts of the country it's like that still.
Still.
You go down south, there's some communities down there that I avoid like the plague. And it's scary because, with the advent of the cell phone videos and that, we're seeing more and more of bad people, bad officers, bad actors. And it's important that people know that something's being done about that. And it's so hard to get a conviction against a law enforcement officer, especially.
We see that on.
It's just I don't know. It's a mentality amongst the local people that they don't want to upset the police because they don't want to be the next one who's going to be on TV getting shot at. So they want to take care of the police, even if they're bad. We got to get past that. And we were making a good headway with that with the Department of Justice, unfortunately, that's changed. And I view that as a temporary setback. But that's where it has to be taken care of, is at the federal stage. You have to have federal charges. I think you would see a higher success rate of prosecuting criminal law enforcement officers, those that are violating the law.
We have a magic word called recidivism.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you can talk to us about how do we reduce the recidivism rate among those who are incarcerated?
I have talked in past elections about this. I have talked to instructors that are willing to step up and train, educate inmates in various different fields, whether it be automotive, whatever they want to learn, whatever they want to do. Everybody has a niche somewhere. And right now, the only education that the inmates are getting is religious, which is good, but even that was used against them. I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
But what they're doing is they take the inmates out, they make them trustees, and they take them out to pick up trash. Well, there's not a high demand for workers to pick up trash on the highways. In fact, volunteers are doing it.
Okay.
You bring somebody in and put them in a classroom setting where they can learn computer skills, they could learn whatever they want to learn, where they can make money when they come out.
Yeah.
And they won't have to revert back to crime to survive. And at this time of year, it's notorious down there. People try to get locked up. A lot of the homeless do. And it's sad. But they've got nothing else to do. They've got no place to go, and they're looking to survive. They'd rather survive inside a jail than try to survive outside.
Again, we're very happy that you've taken time for your busy schedule. I know you are actually very busy. But I like to mention to you the position that you are aspiring for. There has to be vision. They say, whereas there's no vision, people perish.
Yes.
Tell us about your vision for the Sheriff Department. And I mention that because you're going to be, what's the population of the Sheriff Department?
Right
approximately.
Now, the employees, they have around 500, I want to say. And of course, the county is up to 750,000, like you said.
That's right.
And we are greatly understaffed when it comes to addressing the needs of the communities.
Okay.
And the community, of course, is the entire county. And my vision is, again, is to increase the manpower that's on the road, that's in the patrol division, but increase the quality of those folks that are out there. I want to bring in, again, more minorities and let them learn, let them work, and let them achieve what I've achieved throughout my career, which is, a successful career. I don't want to see, people blocked from applying because they don't have that college degree.
Okay.
I'd like to help them get the college degree. I had a friend who left the Sheriff's Department and went to Chicago. The only reason he went there was because they paid his tuition 100%, and he's an attorney now. Now, I don't know if we'll ever get the county to come up with that kind of money, but I think we can improve the benefits as far as the financial aid to employees to obtain their college certification, their college degrees. Right now, I think it's around $200 per semester. And that's nothing. That's maybe one class, So the incentive really isn't there. But I want to bring in people and let them learn and earn and work through the Sheriff's Department and obtain the education that they want and do what they want. But to get them out there on the street, to interact with folks and solve some of the problems that we have.
You mentioned a great thing about interaction because citizens have forums all the time, and by participating in the forums, you have a chance to get your vision, your ideas out to the public too.
Yes, and I enjoy, like I said, I attended several of the Black Lives Matter meetings, and I've known there's been a problem out there for a long time, but it's good to sit down and actually hear from folks.
Okay.
And the first one I went to, I posted about that. I said, yeah, I had a lot to say, but it was better for me to just listen. You know, there's a time and a place for everything. And it was important to listen and hear the fears that people have and try to explain some of the situations. You know, they may have questions. Why does law enforcement do this or that? And get on the same page. Because we're working at the same goal, and that is to solve the problems that we have.
So actually, to give the people the police department is the city, but the sheriff's department, you work in the outer areas.
Yes.
That are
although, you know, our jurisdiction is throughout the county.
Okay.
But generally, we'll come into a community to help when we're requested, or we do drug investigations, gang investigations, which I have to point out, in the past I suggested that the county create a county-wide gang task force. And this is all geared at saving money for the communities, where they don't have to devote an entire division to fighting different problems. And Sheriff Kern did create that. So imitation is the highest form of flattery, and I was glad to see that.
Right. You know, I know this is people, cities, a flight going from like Waukegan, for example, the downtown flight. But I want to know, what is what do you feel about the growth of the expansion of the jail in downtown Waukegan? I know the business district is really
it's a shame, and I'll tell you
declining.
why. We are building this 12-story tower of courtrooms.
Okay.
When 6 blocks east, we've got kids in the Waukegan East campus who have to share books. They can't take books home to study them. And I can't, for the life of me, understand how, but the kids are succeeding still, but how they can succeed. I mean, I look back when I was in school in North Chicago, we had our own books. You took them home, you studied them, you were responsible for them. But we can't give these kids school books, but we're gonna build a courthouse like that, a tower of courtrooms, which is, the only reason they need them is because we didn't devote enough to education to begin with. And you have kids who have no other choice, no other way out of poverty, but to commit crimes. And what's happening in the city of Chicago. You see that, they say, well, the kids have no respect for life. These kids have no other choice. They've got no way to get out of there. It's either join in a gang or be tormented by the gang. And there's little options given to them. And plus we have, the firearms that are flowing in there. Somebody's always making a profit. And a lot of these guns are purchased legally down in Georgia or Indiana, where you can, as they say, they call them straw purchases. And they'll buy, up to 100 weapons at a time. And now they're buying the rifles and bringing those up here. And they're sending them to both sides of the battle.
Okay.
They don't care.
Yeah.
And that's what, again, the federal government is really failing when it comes to that. But you can't have, a flow like that going on. We cannot continue with the status quo, as they say. We cannot continue to just let kids flounder in their environment and have no way out. We've got to eventually step up and say we need to improve the education, and we won't have to build more courthouses. We won't have to expand the jails like we do. Because they call them correctional facilities, but they're not correcting anything. Some of these young kids that are going into jail are learning from the older convicts, as they call them, and they're coming out twice as bad. That's why I say we need to step up and provide an education for the inmates that are in there. Give them the opportunity. Are we going to prevent everybody from going back out and committing crimes? I would hope so, but think that there may be a couple that slip through the cracks, as they say, but I think we can dramatically improve the lives of people and cut down on recidivism greatly.
One question from the community is live police department TV show good for Lake County?
You know, I'm not real impressed with that because sometimes, they had a pursuit going on. And the sheriff's office has, like most departments do, they have a policy, a no pursuit policy. In order to pursue somebody, you have to have, that person has to meet certain criteria. It has to be a forcible felon or a threat to other people.
Okay.
So when you're showing that on TV, people are seeing, the guy won't stop, they just let him go. Well, that's going to spread. And people are going to finally say, you know what, I'm not going to get a ticket. Why should I stop? You know, if I stop, I'm going to get a ticket, my insurance is going to go up, I'll just take off. Sometimes that can be good when people get an insight into what law enforcement's about, but programs like that are so highly edited, they don't see not everything. They don't see the full routine that law enforcement goes through, starting when they begin their shift at their roll call and when they get out onto the street. A no pursuit policy is only good when you have helicopter. I see that in California all the time, where they pull off of the pursuit, but the helicopter maintains a vigil over the vehicle. And they'll just get him when he gets home or wherever the person's going to go. Or they can follow him to where there's a situation where they can isolate the person and stop the vehicle. But just to say, no, we're not going to chase, you're putting other people at risk, because a lot of times when a person is being chased, even if you turn your lights off and let them go, they're going to continue at a high rate of speed in a reckless manner till they get to where they're going. And I've seen that before, where WAUKEGAN has stopped pursuing a vehicle and the vehicle has continued, and I've seen it, miles away, still doing 75, 80 miles an hour. And sometimes it's better that they have that police escort, so to speak.
Yeah.
So people at least have half a chance of knowing that something's coming. But yeah, I prefer, getting people to come into the department and doing ride-alongs, and so they get a good view of what goes on.
Well, let's talk about, in order to be successful, you're going to have family support. But tell about your family.
Well, I have my fiance and her 3 boys.
Okay.
They've been very loyal.
Okay.
Very loyal. And my sisters and my brother are very supportive of me. They've been supportive of me through my entire career.
Okay.
And I mean, I used to go to their houses for meal breaks, and it would save me money. So, if I'm in that particular district, it's good to have family support like that, but they also believe in me.
What about your social life? I know you mentioned about you participate in the community, quite a bit. You're in plays. You're looking forward to other. But what about other social life you have?
Well, I don't drink.
Okay.
and I'm very proud of that. I just don't like that feeling, and it lets me take on my responsibilities more. I do a lot of work outdoors. I got 2 houses, or actually 3 houses that I take care of.
Okay.
I don't charge people for it because they're friends, and it does me good to get outside and exercise too. But people know me. I always talk to people. I'm down by 14th and Jackson.
Oh yeah.
And I know everybody who comes down the alley, good or bad, they always say hello. I talk, and just really enjoy each other's company. So I don't hide. Like I said, I'm very happy with the area I'm at over there. And I know if something was to happen to myself or my fiance outside, people would be out there to help us out.
I know you're participate in church activities too.
Yes. I sing in the choir,
Ah.
and we are going to be going up to Milwaukee to sing tape 2 masses. We're going to tape. They're going to tape, I want to say, 8 masses throughout the day. And these masses are put on by the Archdiocese up there for those that are homebound, as they say. And we're going to be singing 2 masses for Christmas. So we're going to do that Saturday. And we enjoy that. I enjoy that. And then we come back, of course, we sing. Our church has, our parish has 3 church sites now. The Old Holy Rosary, which is Queen of Peace.
Oh, yes.
The new church, which is Holy Family, which is on Macquarie. And then Immaculate Conception. Those 3 sites we've combined to make Most Blessed Trinity. And we have the grade school, of course, where Immaculate Conception is at. So throughout the years, I've been singing in the choir since the 80s. And my fiance and I used to coach volleyball over there at Immaculate Conception and at Holy Rose when that school was open.
Fantastic.
So always enjoyed that, though, you know, because sometimes that's the only adult some of the kids may see, you know, because they get home, the parents are both working and that. And we give them guidance.
Ladies and gentlemen, again, we've been talking with John T. Krempotic.
That's good. That's better. That's actually the correct way.
Krempotic, a retiree from the Lake County Sheriff's Department, the Democratic candidate for the Lake County Sheriff's Department, and he feels that there is a need for a change in the head of the Lake County Sheriff's Department, and we've been learning a lot about him. As a matter of fact, he's a contemporary of the North Chicago, the city of North Chicago, Illinois, and we want to thank him for taking time to come to the studio to let us know what his vision is and why he should be in command of the Lake County Sheriff's Department. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Community Forum. My name is Dr. Waddell Brooks Sr., your host.